The Center for Communication in Medicine is pleased to present the Bennington Speak Sooner Community Program, Building Your Team and Navigating the System, on Thursday, November 12th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Old Castle Theater in downtown Bennington. The program is free and it's open to the public. We or someone we love will be a patient someday, and how we communicate can influence the care we receive. Learn how to prepare for conversations with your doctors and nurses. I'm Dr. Bernard Bandman. I'm director of the Center for Communication in Medicine. I'm here today with Lindy Lynch, Jan Martin-Bopp, and Celia Engel Bandman. And we'll be talking about the challenges of communicating with healthcare providers when facing serious illness. I'd like to begin with you, Lindy. Can you tell us about your diagnosis and when you were diagnosed?
Yes, I was diagnosed last August, so 14 months out. You don't forget the day you are diagnosed. And that was with breast cancer. And I got a double whammy. I was diagnosed during treatment in February with melanoma, rare melanoma. So double whammy. Been dealing with both.
Okay. So let me ask you, what have been your biggest challenges?
Well, that would take a book. And that's later. The biggest challenges is finding the right care, the right folks to be on my team, and researching a little bit about both diagnoses so that I would be prepared for the battle.
So you mentioned prepared. So how did you prepare for your conversations with your doctors?
Well, fortunately, I do have a medical background, so I had a little step up, unlike other people. I am an Army nurse, so I did have a little bit. And I just went through caregiving for a year with my husband, and I had your toolkit. That was also helpful to remind myself of it's okay to ask the questions. And I read a lot. I did do a lot of reading from a variety of sources to prepare, a lot of homework to get ready to ask the questions. And I always have a list of questions for every doctor, and I left with the answers.
You made sure you left
Yes.
with the answers.
Yes.
Exactly. So let me just turn to you, Jan, and let me ask you to tell us about your diagnosis and when you were diagnosed.
Well, I have been diagnosed more than once. I have at least 3 serious illnesses, so I contend with them daily. I can go back to 1998 when I had a double spinal fusion, and I continue to have lumbar spine issues and have to be treated regularly. And about that time, I also developed atrial fibrillation and had to go through a cardiac ablation, which helped me for several years. But then at one point, my body was speaking to me because I was not the same. I could not live a normal daily life like I had. And I was very physically active, and all of a sudden I didn't have strength, and had to find out what's going on. So it took me a while going through an internist who happened to be my primary care physician at the time. And tests weren't indicating anything specifically, and I kept getting worse. So it reached the point where I had to be more assertive, not aggressive, with that doctor and say, I need to see a hematologist, because my mother had myelodysplastic syndrome, which is a precursor of leukemia. And I was worried that I might have that. Luckily, I found that it's not hereditary. But the tests indicated that I didn't merely have severe anemia, I had multiple myeloma, which is a bone marrow blood disease. I went through a stem cell transplant. I dealt in Boston. I have a team of doctors there. I have a team of doctors here in Bennington for all of my conditions. So I spend much of my time navigating that system. I have to live by my appointment book, or I don't know where I am.
So there's a lot
And-
going on. Let me just
and-
ask you, how do you prepare? Now, this is the next question because it's so much the emphasis of our program in terms of helping patients and family members and friends, people who are involved in the care of someone they love. You know, how do you prepare for conversations with your healthcare providers?
Well, I've been a professional lifelong educator, and I've been a biologist, so I have some, and I've been very closely connected with medical people. So I had a natural interest. So, like Lindy, with her nursing background, it's very helpful because that can generate some questions. But with all of my different illnesses and having so many doctors in 2 different places, I had to learn how to dance with each medical provider. And it is sort of like learning ballroom dancing. And who is going to take the lead? Who's going to respond? What disagreements are going to arise? And how are they going to be resolved? Well, in my educational background, I also learned some mediation. So it was very helpful for me to be a self-advocate.
And so in preparing, I know you've talked in the past, and Lindy just mentioned it, that you've utilized a resource, a guide. Could you just say a little bit about
Indeed.
what you've used?
I found out about the Difficult Conversations Workbook, which was created by the Center for Communication and Medicine and is now the tool for the Speak Sooner initiative. And being an educator, I did my homework. I read the text, and it's really not a text. It is a guidebook, but it was so helpful for me in thinking about things to reflect on and how to present them to others in my life, family, friends, caregivers, and all of the medical personnel that I have to deal with regularly. And because of my 3 illnesses, new things keep cropping up, and I have to take a step back and refresh myself on how to approach each and every one of those medical persons.
Good, thank you. Now, I'd like to turn to Celia. And you created the Difficult Conversations Workbook. So can you tell us why?
I can tell you, for those of us who are not yet ill, we can only imagine. To imagine is not to know. And I remember a conversation with a patient. My knowledge comes from the patient. And when I asked her what she understood about her diagnosis, she told me, nobody gave me a prognosis. She said, I really didn't want one. I poked around to find one, and I didn't like what I found, so I just kind of ignored it. And then she went on, after a long pause, said, doctors have a hard job. Not everybody wants to have these conversations. And it was at that moment that I knew, how do I help facilitate what are difficult conversations? And creating the workbook with the goal of getting patients and families and doctors and nurses on the same page.
Well, thank you. We've just heard from Lindy and Jan and Celia about their own perspective and experiences as far as being prepared for conversations with their healthcare team. But Celia, you just said something I think is very important, and that is that doctors and nurses, they also have a hard job. They're not mind readers. And what you're hearing is here from Lindy and Jan and Celia that our healthcare providers, they need our help. We need to be prepared to let them know what our questions and concerns are. And that's going to be the emphasis of the program, building your team and navigating the system. And that's on Thursday, November 12th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Old Castle Theater in downtown Bennington, and it's free and it's open to the public. I'd like to also say that through the generosity of sponsors, that we'll be providing everyone who attends with a free copy of the Difficult Conversations Toolkit, and that's a video and the workbook. So we're looking forward to seeing you and our community really coming together to discover how do you improve communication with your healthcare providers. We do encourage you, though, to register soon because space is limited at Old Castle, and you'll be seeing on your screen the information about how you can register. Do it soon, and we look forward to seeing you on November 12th. Thanks.